The Sahara mustard, this is one that we've got in Graham County, so it's one we want to watch for. This is a real problem in the Yuma area, in those dunes. It's just completely taking over the dunes, and it acts like Russian thistle or tumbleweed. It'll get this real, it's very strongly branched seed stalks on it, flower stalks, and then it gets pretty, it can get about that big if it's a good year, good spring for it. And then it just tumbles, it breaks off and tumbles and spreads its seeds.
We found one of those on Hereford Road, didn't we?
We did. We found one on Hereford Road.
Yeah.
And I found one in Benson and pulled it right away. So the key is getting rid of them right away. I forgot about that.
It's on the corner.
Are those dark portions of the plant there, are those flowers or is that?
Shadow. Down here, you mean?
Yeah.
That's shadow.
Ah.
These are, it's a mustard, so it's got those tiny little yellow flowers.
It
have
does,
4
okay.
yellow petals.
It's real stiff. It's real spiny.
Yeah,
It's
it's real stiff looking.
Yeah.
There's some of it, ADOT redid Highway 191 between I-10 and Safford. And last year, in the rehab work area, we found it coming up. So it's contaminated in their seed mix that they're rehabbing with. And they got it cleaned up right away in this 2-mile stretch last year. And then this year, it's in the next stretch that they just rehabbed for about 4 miles. So they were out there with prisoners yesterday taking care of it and getting rid of it. This is sweet resin bush. It's found on Fry Mesa, which is behind Thatcher on one of the mesas coming off of Mount Graham. It was planted in 1935. They had 15 potted plants, and they put them in an exclosure so that things wouldn't eat them. They thought that livestock and wildlife would eat this plant, and they would try to use it as a revegetation plant after the drought of the 30s. And so they fenced everything out so it could get established. They decided it wasn't going to work very well, and they just left it. And now we've got about 3,000 acres infested with it. And we have spent over $2 million trying to control this weed. We do know it was planted in other places by the Civilian Conservation Corps. It's in Sabino Canyon, out on the Santa Ritas, up by Pumpkin Center, between Camp Verde and Cottonwood. But those infestations are all pretty small. This one we've got, and I know that records show that someone in 1952 did their master's thesis on it around Pierce. But we've never found where they actually planted it, so there could be more out there, we just don't know. We know it was planted in other states. They shipped some to Nevada, Utah, and New Mexico, but no one has ever found any of it. So it's a...
You can see it in Safford. You can look up there and see it.
Yeah. When it blooms in February, mid-February, and you can look up on that mesa, it'll just be solid yellow. All right, then the thistles, these, most of these come from England. They were brought over, again, as ornamentals because of their pretty purple flowers. They're biennial. We have a bunch of these in the Cascabel area that are a problem. And but the difference from our native ones, the ones you see kind of about to flower right now, they're all shooting up their stalks right now along the highway. These are going to be like 5 times the size. The leaf size is going to be huge. The spines are huge.
And everything's you.
Yeah, and they're pretty big. We tend not to have them in southern Arizona except in like irrigated pasture areas. So where they do really well is like up on Mingus Mountain in Yavapai County, where you're up in the pine, kind of, where it's cooler and moister. And so the places we're finding them all are in irrigated pasture right now, down here. But it's something to keep an eye out for.
Now, my wife has one or two of those, and she keeps them around because she says the birds just love to eat the seeds. Yeah.
Yeah, and if there are native ones, that's fine. And we do have several native species here.
Mm-hmm.
They all look alike, I think, for me. I thought I had some, and I take pictures of them, and she goes, no, that's not it.
Yeah, most of what we have around here is New Mexico
Yeah.
thistle. That's kind of our big native that you see on around here right now. There's also golden spine thistle too, that's native. Camel thorn is, we do not have, we had one case of it around Fort Thomas, and ADOT found it and got it right away. It's one to be on the lookout, though. This plant is growing through 8 inches of asphalt to pop out. It's a very tough plant, spiny. I've got a mount of it here. Up by, they've got a lot of it by Holbrook and on the Navajo Reservation, that it gets in people's foundations, it goes in the conduit in their houses, it goes through block. It's just an amazing plant. And so that's one we want to make sure we keep an eye out for it and get right away.
Where did that come from? Do you know?
I do not remember on this one.
Northern Africa.
Northern Africa, okay. It's actually one of Art's former co-workers that lives over in Sonoya. He had done some work, restoration work in Afghanistan, and he actually sent me pictures of African rue in its native environment over in Afghanistan. How many of you heard of bufflegrass? In Tucson, it's a real problem. We do have some in Cascabel area. I think that's because it's a little lower. It's not cold tolerant, which is why I think we haven't seen it show up a lot in Cochise County. But there are researchers in Texas, because it's a good forage for livestock, that are working on a cold tolerant variety. So we may still have a problem with this plant at some point in time. Problem with it is it just, in the Sonoran Desert, it's creating fuels for fires to go through, and Sonoran Desert can't take fires. None of the species are adapted to it, so that's why there's a concern there. Dalmatian toadflax, we had one plant about 25 years ago show up outside of Bisbee, and the person recognized it right away, got out and removed it, and we've never had another reported case of it in southeastern Arizona. It's also called, is it butter and eggs, I think? It's was brought in as an ornamental. It's a real problem in some states, completely taking over. If you go out in the forest around Flagstaff, there's a lot of it out there, just in the coniferous forest, walking around. Okay, white top or hoary cress is another one that has the same root system as the Russian knapweed and the African rue. We didn't think we had any of this until a couple of years ago. I went on a little tour over in New Mexico, and we stopped in Lordsburg and we were looking at New Mexico DOT spraying some of this, and I went back over to Duncan and said, yep, we've got it all over the place. So it's just we didn't know what it was. So some of these can pop up. I've had a report of some of it in Cascabel, but I've never seen it. So again, the extensive root system really makes a problem. Tree Right, so education awareness is what we try to do with these workshops so that people can learn these plants and kind of keep eye out for them. Like Linda said, it's kind of a curse because we drive anywhere, we're always looking for these weeds. Talked about prevention, early detection, like the Dalmatian toadflax, just getting out there early and taking care of them. We are doing inventory and mapping through the Coronado RC&D, has a couple of grants. Right now we're working on onion weed and getting it mapped and treated in the county because we have such a problem with it. We've also done over the years a lot with Russian knapweed. And then we work together with other groups and agencies to try and treat these weeds, and with private landowners also. So those are some of the things we do. And the thing we started a couple of years ago were some rapid response teams in different areas. We were on our way 3 years ago to Double Adobe to do a weed workshop, and driving down Central Highway, and I told the driver, I said, pull over, I think I just saw onion weed, and we saw this patch here. And so we got out the shovel and the bags and we took care of it right away. But that's the kind of response we need to have on some of these small infestations as we find them. And then we've also had a group last week from the Benson area that pulled about 20 pounds of a small infestation that we found a couple of years ago. So keeping some people that knowing what the plants are and that are willing to get out and help take care of these smaller ones at least.